right, good morning. So today we're talking about the compatibility of Virgo. I really don't have much to say. I think with Virgo it's a little bit complicated. So I'm not going to say much in this beginning part. I want to just dive in and go through each sign. So let's start with Aquarius because we're going in alphabetical order as usual, since that's a weird order. Virgo and Aquarius is interesting. This is a quincunx aspect. It's a 150-degree aspect, or 5 signs apart. And like I've said, before, quincunx, the word quincunx sounds awkward, and it is an awkward dynamic because whenever you have signs that are quincunx, they have as little in common as possible, even more so than if they were opposites. Opposite signs that would actually have much more in common than quincunx signs. So that's definitely true here. Virgo is mutable earth, Aquarius is fixed air. Virgo's the end of summer, Aquarius is the middle of winter. Aquarius is yang, Virgo is yin. You can see that they have about as little in common as possible. So they can, it's just gonna be hard for each one to understand each other. There's gonna be, a need for a lot of compromise. Before I continue too, I want to mention, always look at the Venus, Mars, and descendant placements. It's not gonna be good enough if you're just looking at someone's sun or moon sign. That really doesn't give you an idea of compatibility or attraction. We are attracted to the signs that our Venus, Mars, and descendant are in. So that can, of course, change the picture very much. Astrology is complicated. But just looking at this, from a sign by sign kind of way, Virgo and Aquarius are very different from one another. There is one main commonality, though. Actually, one or two. One commonality is that these are both very intellectual signs. Okay, they're both depicted as humans, right? Aquarius is the water bearer. Virgo is like the virgin, the maiden, whatever. So they're both human signs. They're both rational, analytical. So they could have very interesting conversations. Another commonality, which is a little bit, maybe a tiny bit more of a stretch, but both Aquarius and Virgo are symbolized by angels. And I know this is going to sound weird real quick, but no other sign is ever depicted as an angel, with wings, but Aquarius and Virgo are. It's not because they're better than everyone else, although it's interesting that they can sometimes come across that way. They can sometimes come across as condescending. But the reason why is because Virgo and Aquarius are focused on helping other people. So there is that kind of weird, commonality of that theme. But whether or not that contributes to an actual, romantic compatibility is a totally different story. What else? I wouldn't say it's the worst combination because at least both are analytical. They both are, analytical, detached, rational. I think they could have great conversations and learn from each other. But the main difference is that Aquarius is much more like radical, and Aquarius can be very stable, but then they'll be stable for a long time and then suddenly change in a really dramatic way, in an unpredictable way. And I think that would be distressing to most people that have major Virgo placements, because Virgo is much more oriented toward stability, right? So they're both oriented towards stability in a way, but then they both have, Virgo is constantly adapting and changing, but is very slow to make any large changes. And Aquarius is very consistent until they, for whatever reason, wake up one day and make a dramatic change. So that's also a difference too that I think could be like distressing really to either of them. Next is Aries. So this is actually another quincunx. So we'll just get both the quincunxes out of the way with Aquarius and then Aries. Same kind of dynamic. I think Virgo and Aries actually have less in common than Virgo and Aquarius do. I'm not saying that, I'm aware of multiple Virgo Aries relationships. I'm not saying it can't happen, but again, astrology is complicated. It's not just based on your sun sign. It's based on Venus, Mars, and the descendant much more so than your sun or moon signs. I'll say that a million times. Like it's such a clear pattern in astrology, and it's really not known about very well. But anyway, I think Virgo and Aries have even less in common because again, it's a quincunx. Virgo's mutable earth, Aries is cardinal fire, Virgo's the end of summer, Aries is the beginning of spring. Like there's nothing in common. They're not even remotely close to each other. They're, different modes, different elements. One's yin, one's yang. And Aries isn't intellectual like Aquarius is, Aries isn't intellectual like Virgo is. And so I don't know. I think these two could be attracted to each other, maybe. Different people want different things in relationships. Some people want someone that's very similar to themselves. If that's the true with these Virgo and Aries people, then this isn't going to work at all because they are so different. But if the Aries and the Virgo involved are curious or open to someone who is much different than they are, then this could actually be very interesting. I think Aries would be attracted to Virgos. Virgo comes across a little bit like cold or internal at first, and I think that could actually be, that could actually pique Aries' interest. Virgo could seem like a challenge to Aries, and so I think Aries might actually enjoy the hunt or the pursuit of Virgo. Virgo could also admire Aries, courage and enthusiasm and warmth. Both are also very direct signs. That is one commonality. Aries and Virgo are some of the most direct and like straightforward signs, so they could kind of enjoy that about each other. And Aries could admire Virgo's like self-control and intelligence, I guess, or I don't know, rationality maybe. But I think once these signs get a little more cozy with each other, they would realize how dramatically different they are. Yes, they are both direct signs, but Aries is extremely optimistic and Virgo is much more cynical. And so, Virgo's cynicism could be a buzzkill to Aries, and Aries, recklessness and complete, total spontaneity could just seem, out of control to Virgo. So yeah, another thing too is I think I kind of already said this, but Virgo is just such a heavy energy. Virgo's not as, it's not as focused on initiation and beginnings. It's more about refining and controlling everything. So again, that's just so dramatically different than Aries, which is all about, let's just start and create things. Virgo can be creative, but it's more about, taking what's already there and changing it, or, so they both just represent completely different sides of things. Aries is the first part of the first hemisphere of the zodiac, and Virgo is the last sign of the first hemisphere, if that makes sense. So Virgo is all about initiations, and Virgo is much more about endings and transitions. So there's just not quite enough in common here, I think, for there to be a lot of understanding. Next is Cancer, and I think this is a really underrated combination. I never really hear this talked about at all. And there's things going in favor and going against this. I think I'd put Virgo Cancer in the good category. This is a sextile, so sextiles are beautiful. They're harmonious. This is like Venus energy we're talking about. A sextile is 60 degrees or 2 signs. And so sextiles are beautiful because these signs have enough in common to understand each other, but enough different to, for the dynamic to be interesting and dynamic. Also each sign has different strengths, so it can be very complementary in nature. Cancer will enjoy how grounded Virgo is. They'll enjoy how Virgo is interesting but a little bit predictable. I think that will be, it will allow Cancer to feel very safe. And Virgo will enjoy how nurturing Cancer is. Cancer is much more, what's the word? Like, Cancer can be shy, but I think they're much more willing to be emotionally vulnerable than Virgo is. And so I think Virgo can kind of admire that and soak that up. So again, you have these different strengths coming together in a really beautiful way. What else? I think the main downside would be, Virgo could come across as very controlling and nitpicking to Cancer, and Cancer is much more like just go with the flow. I think Virgo can be messy, but they tend to have a much more organized, like a controlled household, if that makes sense, and that could be annoying to Cancer. And then likewise, Cancer is usually a little bit more messy, and that could be annoying to Virgo. So I could see how in domestic, situations, it could be a bit of a strain for both of them. But again, at the same time, I think both are so internal and like self-aware, maybe. That could be interesting for both of them. So next is Capricorn, and this is a trine. It's 120 degrees, and so trines, I always say trines are no-brainers because these signs are going to have more in common than, most other signs. They're both earth signs. There's all these elemental keywords that I always think of. So with Virgo and Capricorn, both are very hardworking. They're probably the most hardworking signs, maybe. I wouldn't say Virgo is the most ambitious sign, but the Virgo is hardworking though. Anyway, they're both practical, down to earth, grounded, both very humble. That could actually play a big part in compatibility because neither Virgo nor Capricorn will be super like grandiose with their displays of affection. And so, both Virgo and Capricorn can be kind of misunderstood by other signs because of that. But together, I think they'll kind of understand each other's ways of showing affection. Like they're more likely to show affection through either gifts or maybe like deeds. I forget what the word is, how they term it, but like services, things like that, things that are very like functional and logical. And so again, those might be completely like overlooked by other signs, but Virgo and Capricorn could appreciate them. I guess I have to put this in the best match category. I just think it might be a little dull. That's all. Because the only downside would be, if you have so much in common, there could be a threat of the dynamic becoming more of a friendship or even a roommate type situation. Because yes, you have so much in common. That's great. You can relate to each other. It's going to be a very easy connection, but there's no edginess, there's no tension, and therefore there could be a lack of attraction or passion, if that makes sense. But that's really where we'd have to look to the other placements involved and see, ideally I would like some kind of contrast, I guess, from my like nerdy, psychological, astrological perspective. I would usually like a little bit more of a complementary dynamic like what we saw with Cancer. But there's nothing wrong with being best friends. Best friends, that's a huge part of that. Could be something, it could be part of something greater. So I might move this later, but for now, I'm going to put Capricorn in the best match category. Honestly, now that I think about it, I don't know a lot of Virgo Capricorn relationships. I've actually been in one myself, but other than that, I don't know a whole lot. I don't know. Next is Gemini. So this is a pretty interesting match as well. Yes, Virgo and Gemini do have a lot of differences. They are square to one another, so 90 degrees. So yeah, there are a lot of differences. But when I always say with a square, usually what happens is you're not going to agree all the time, but you will at least understand and respect each other because both signs are mutable. It's just that they have a different element. So Gemini, well, both Gemini and Virgo, they're also both ruled by Mercury, so that's a huge commonality as well. Both Gemini and Virgo are very analytical. They're obsessed with learning about everything just for the sake of learning. Both are going to be really interested in, different information and concepts. So I think these two could have really great conversations. Yes, they could get on each other's nerves a little bit, but again, both are immutable signs, so I think both may be kind of open-minded to each other. I think that kind of depends on the Virgo, though. Some Virgos may be irritated by that, but some Virgos will be open. It just kind of depends. Because, again, with any mutable sign, there's a huge range, so that's why it gets a little bit more complicated talking about compatibility. Because mutable signs really blend depending on, what other placements are in their chart and what other, signs are they around in other people as well. But Virgo and Gemini, I'll put that in the good category, which is weird because honestly I like Virgo paired with Gemini or Cancer better than Capricorn. I just think it's more interesting. I think the two could learn from each other more. There was something else I was going to say about Virgo and Gemini. I've noticed a lot of couples like who have Sun in Gemini and Sun in Virgo. I'll definitely say that much. But other than that, I don't know. The only downside would be Virgo's, like, they're both very much focused on information, but Gemini is more about collecting the information. They're like completely open to just any random, not just information, but ideas, experiences, people. And Virgo is much more controlled. Like Virgo's the other side of Mercurial energy, which is much more focused on, okay, let's synthesize, let's organize. Gemini takes in the information, Virgo refines the information and controls it. So I could see them both being a really great team because of that dynamic. But I could also see them kind of getting on each other's nerves because Virgo is going to have a much more like some Virgos can get pretty crazy, but most Virgos will like to have some kind of like rhyme and reason to their life, whereas Gemini likes a lot of spontaneity. So again, that's where we'd really need to look to the other placements involved for this to work. Okay, next is Leo. This one is weird. I keep saying everything's weird lately. Now it's starting to annoy me. But with Virgo and Leo, it's an in conjunction, which that's another word that sounds kind of awkward, like quincunx, and it is awkward because it's not as awkward as a quincunx, but two signs that are right next to each other, they are going to be very, very different from each other. But the main commonality is that they at least exist within the same like time frame, so they have the same kind of world view, if that makes sense. The difference is how they deal with that worldview. I always compare in conjunct signs or side by side signs. I compare them to being siblings because they come from the same general time frame usually, but they have dramatically different personalities. And when it comes to their compatibility, they'll get along famously for a little while, and then it's just amazing how quickly that can turn to, they're bickering like an old married couple, and then they're getting along again. Again, very much like siblings. With Virgo and Leo, I could see this as being a common match just because these are some of the most common signs, that people are just happen to be born a lot during this general time of year. But yeah, there's a lot of differences. I think the main difference is Leo is the most proud sign and Virgo is probably the most humble sign. So another difference too is Leo is the most optimistic sign, or one of them for sure, and Virgo is one of the most cynical signs. So again, Virgo might kind of rain on Leo's parade, so to speak, or be, like a wet blanket. And then Leo might be too sporadic, too outgoing, too adventurous, too reckless for Virgo. Another difference too is Leo is usually very outgoing. They love interacting with others, usually. And Virgo tends to be very introverted. So I could see Leo being like a party animal, and that's just going to be very uncomfortable for Virgo. Virgo usually likes a more, I don't know, when it really comes down to it, Virgo is very sensitive. So I think they want a more close-knit relationship, whereas Leo wants a lot of room to be free and express themselves. Like Virgo can be independent. They can both be independent. Another weird commonality that you might not think of is I do think like family is important to Leo and Virgo. Maybe even more for Leo, honestly. Like both are very independent signs, but they're also very much, very loyal, and friendship and family, are important to both of these. So that could kind of work. I think I'm going to put this in the awkward category. I'm kind of debating putting it in the worst category. Virgo is complicated. Like honestly, Scorpio's compatibility was way easier. Virgo's is a little bit more complicated. I might move that as well. I mean, what's going for this mix, really? There's the connection to, loyalty and family, being independent. Both have high standards for themselves, but in different ways, though. I mean, Leo is such a relaxed, like, let's just have fun kind of energy. And Virgo is the opposite. It's all about, let's prepare and work and get organized. I don't know. I think Leo is very similar to Aries. I think it would take a special kind of, combination for this to work. Leo is the 12th house of Virgo, so Virgo kind of has a blind spot there. I don't know. It's kind of definitely awkward mix. Next is Libra. So this is also an in conjunction from the other side. Virgo and Libra are side by side to each other. I think Virgo and Libra actually have a little bit more in common than Virgo and Leo do, though, because Libra is an air sign, Virgo is an earth sign, but at least both are intellectual. Virgo and Libra is actually a really interesting compatibility. So there's a lot going for this combination, and there's a lot going against it as well. Both are intelligent signs, but in very different ways. I think, Libra is much more focused on being very diplomatic and, how does everyone else feel? Let's kind of go along with, other people. And, Libra is very socially intelligent. Virgo is not the most, social, it's not the biggest, social butterfly. Like, Virgo can be very awkward. Virgo can be blunt and cold, and I think that can come across as off-putting and maybe even socially, like tactless. I think that can come across as tactless to Libra and be kind of a turnoff. And yeah, and Virgo could be offensive to Libra. And on the other hand, Virgo really values authenticity, and so they could view Libra's kind of diplomacy as being dishonest. And so I think that's where both can really rub each other the wrong way. What else? Both are kind of detached signs, though, and both can be intellectual. So they could have really interesting conversations, especially if you get a particularly analytical Libra and a particularly social Virgo. Then I think it could work really well. Another thing, though, is with compatibility, Libra is usually looking for a more strong-willed sign. Like, they usually vibe with fire signs, and Virgo is strong-willed, but it's in a much more kind of introverted kind of way. So I definitely don't think this is the worst combination. I've actually known like Virgo Libra couples before. I myself have many Libra friends, and I'm a Virgo, but I have a lot of air in my chart as well. I think this would be kind of an awkward mix, like not the worst mix in the world. It could definitely work with any imperfect combination. I think it could work as long as there's mutual respect and understanding and compromise, communication, all of that good stuff. I'm actually not big on communication. I think trust and understanding are more important. Yes, communication may be needed for that, but if you have trust and understanding, you actually don't need communication. Anyway, but so yeah, it could definitely work for sure, especially depending on what other placements are involved. But part of me almost likes this combination and wants to put it in like the average, but all in all, I would think there'd be easier combinations, generally speaking, if we're just talking about like the signs themselves, I guess. Okay, next is Pisces. Pisces and Virgo, I think, are gonna have a hard time. So Virgo and Pisces are opposite. They're 180 degrees apart, or 6 signs apart. Right? 7 signs apart. They're straight across. So that math doesn't make sense. 7 times 30, that'd be 2100. I don't know. 5 signs. There's 6 signs across. Yeah, 6 signs apart from each other. Straight across. Okay. Virgo and Pisces. So, okay, opposing signs can work really beautifully together. Sometimes. It depends on what opposition we're talking about. I think of all the different, of all the 6 different opposing pairs of zodiac signs, I think Virgo and Pisces actually work the least with compatibility. Not saying it couldn't work with the right combination, but these signs are opposite, and they do have some things in common. Like, both are very... these are the 2 ending signs. Virgo ends the first half of the zodiac, and Pisces ends the last half of the zodiac. Pisces ends the entire thing. So both are focused on kind of integrating, right? They're both focused on like processing their experiences, but they do so in dramatically different ways. Virgo is more analytical. It's processing things more mentally. Pisces is processing things more emotionally. So you would think like, well, fundamentally they have those things in common, so you'd think they would work well. But endings become more... I think we become more like internal during endings sometimes. Like, these are both very internal signs, I think. Virgo probably even more than Pisces, if I'm being honest. Like, Pisces can be outgoing, they can be very warm and very open to their environments, but Virgo is not usually. Virgo is like, kind of has a wall up against the outside. Also, like, Pisces is just so sensitive and emotional, so they're looking to kind of feel the emotion in other people, and Virgo, I think, can often be a little bit too detached for Pisces. Pisces is a very warm sign. Virgo can be more on the cold side. So this could be, Virgo's coldness or kind of detachedness could be off-putting to Pisces, and even, I don't want to say disorienting, but Pisces may not really understand Virgo because they can't place their emotion. Virgo does have deep feelings and they are very sensitive, but they keep that inside. They keep that on lockdown. And so that's going to be, kind of confusing to Pisces. Pisces doesn't get it. And vice versa. It's, I don't know. I think Virgo can admire signs that wear their heart on their sleeve sometimes, but with Pisces, it's just having that straight across dynamic. They're both just such different energies, and I don't think either one is always. How do I phrase this? This is challenging. Pisces can be open to energies that are different from themselves, but I almost think maybe Virgo. I think Virgo can be open to much different energies as long as there's some kind of common ground. And here, there's just not enough common ground. Like Virgo doesn't know how to operate that emotionally on an external level. I think they keep that all inside. So I don't know. It's just yeah. It's Mercury rules Virgo, and Mercury is the only planet that's in detriment and in fall in the same sign, and it's in that's in Pisces. So that kind of just shows you how the analytical energy is so disoriented when it comes to Pisces. It just doesn't. It's like water and oil. It just doesn't really work. And then same, of course, the rulers of Pisces are in detriment in Virgo as well. So it just, I don't know. Yeah, it would take a certain combination for that to work. Next is Sagittarius. I think I'm going to throw Sagittarius in the average category. The average category is looking a little lonely. No, but seriously, so Virgo and Sagittarius are square to one another. They're both mutable, but they have different elements. They're 90 degrees apart, or 3 signs apart. Virgo and Sagittarius. So I've actually known a lot of couples who have major Virgo and Sagittarius placements. I think this is an underrated combination. Both are intellectual. There's enough in common where both can have interesting conversations and things like that. Both are mutable. So again, you have that dynamic where they may not always understand, or no, they may not always agree on everything, but at least they'll understand and respect each other, right? What else? I think both can kind of admire each other's differences, maybe. That kind of just depends, but Virgo may admire Sagittarius' optimism, enthusiasm, and adventurousness, and Sagittarius may admire Virgo's like organization and rationality. Also, both are analytical signs, but both are kind of sensitive as well. So they have that kind of combination of being deep feelers, but also deep thinkers as well. Sagittarius does tend to be a little bit more on the passionate side, whereas Virgo is more on the analytical side. But I think you have enough in common, but also enough different to make this a really interesting and dynamic combination. The challenge, I think, would be, again, like I mentioned with the other fire signs, Sagittarius is one of the most optimistic signs. Honestly, I think Sagittarius might be the most optimistic. And I'd probably rank Virgo like third most cynical after Scorpio and Capricorn. So I'm just saying, Sagittarius is very optimistic. Virgo is very cynical. Virgo could be a buzzkill for Sagittarius, and Sagittarius could seem just reckless and out of control to Virgo. So there could be a lot of stress. There could be stress and hurt feelings, really, for both of them here. So there's a lot going for this combination. There's a lot going kind of against it. I think it would be average. Something kind of interesting with mythology, though. I mentioned earlier the Chiron Virgo connection, and Chiron is actually a centaur, and Sagittarius is depicted as a centaur. So I think there is meaning behind that. Centaurs are half human, half beast, so they are instinctual like a beast, but then also rational like a human. So both are centaurs like that. But Chiron, some of the centaurs were said to be like, most of them were completely like belligerent and just drunk on wine and party animals, more reminiscent of Sagittarius. But Chiron was said to be like a sophisticated centaur. Like a minority of the centaurs were more refined and intellectual or whatever. So that kind of, it's still part beast, half human, but it's more rational. That would be Virgo. So there is that. I think that just shows you both are deep feeling and deep thinkers, I guess. I think that's the centaur mythology. Next is Scorpio. So yeah, I think this would be I have to put it in the best match category. This is a famous match. I don't personally experience this as much, but I think that's because of my air placements. But Virgo and Scorpio, they are sextile. There is a 60-degree aspect there that is very beautiful. It's Venus energy. I think Virgo and Scorpio actually have more in common than Cancer and Virgo do. And I guess the reason why is because Virgo is the end of summer, Scorpio is the middle of fall. So both are like preparing, both are fixated on, darkness is coming in. So that I think that's where both view the glass kind of half empty. Both are cynical, but that allows both of them to be so industrious and productive and analytical. They're both constantly looking for problems to solve. They're both fixers. What else? I also think both are very analytical, but also deep feeling as well. Of course, Scorpio is going to be much more emotional, and Virgo is going to be more analytical. But still, I do think both are, deep thinkers and deep feelers. Kind of like how I mentioned with Sagittarius. What else? Virgo is also often very misunderstood, and I think Virgo wants to be understood, and so Virgo will actually not mind Scorpio's penetrating gaze. I think Virgo will actually enjoy being read like a book. Like, they want to be understood, and Scorpio will enjoy how transparent and direct Virgo is, because Scorpio has this like allergy to bullshit, let's just say. And Virgo, generally speaking, Virgo's not going to bullshit you. They're very direct, like me right now. Like, this isn't bullshit, I'm being very real. That's all I know how to do, really. So Scorpio will enjoy that. Scorpio will also enjoy how grounded Virgo is. That will kind of, even Virgo's consistency, and like, even, they can be a little bit predictable sometimes. That will be very grounding and safe for Scorpio. But both are also complex signs. Like, both Virgo and Scorpio are stable but complicated, and they're both very adaptable. They just kind of adapt at a slow pace, I think. So anyway, they both have tons of commonalities. What are the differences or the challenges here? I mean, you could get a Virgo that's very analytical and a Scorpio that's very emotional, and then there's going to be a huge disconnect there. Like, there could be too much of a difference there. Virgo's detachedness could be off-putting to Scorpio, and Scorpio's heavy emotion could be off-putting to Virgo. But I think that would be only in a minority of situations. Like me, for example, a Virgo with a lot of air in their chart, that's not generally going to work with Scorpio. But especially, I mean, it depends. I don't want to get into the nuances of, compatibility reading, but a Virgo with water in their chart would work so well with Scorpio, or a Scorpio with earth in their chart. They would have so much in common, but there's enough differences to really to complement both of these signs as well. Okay, then we just got 2 earth signs left. Next is Taurus. So Taurus forms the other trine with Virgo along with Capricorn. So they have a lot in common. I actually like Virgo and Taurus more than Virgo and Capricorn, because I think Virgo and Capricorn actually have even more in common than Virgo and Taurus do, and that's not always a good thing, kind of like I mentioned, Anyway, Virgo and Taurus, they have enough in common to be friends. Like, it's going to be an easy connection, easy communication. There's not going to be much need for compromise, because they both have a lot of the same ways of expressing themselves and the same needs and wants. Both are very stable, hardworking, practical, down to earth, logical. But I like that there's enough difference here, because Taurus is a little bit more instinctual, I think. They don't overthink everything like Virgo does. So that could, I don't know, help or hinder this dynamic, depending on if both parties are open to that kind of difference. And what else? I'm sorry, my phone went off and just threw my brain off. I also like how Virgo's ruled by Mercury, Taurus is ruled by Venus. And I guess you could say the same thing was true with Libra, but there was that huge difference with Libra. With Virgo and Taurus, they have the same element, but one being ruled by Mercury, one being ruled by Venus. Mercury and Venus coming together can be very beautiful. It's very harmonious energy, very conversational energy. So I think that can be beautiful. And I think, Taurus being a little bit more optimistic can be very complimentary for Virgo, since Virgo is a little bit more cynical, or like quote unquote realistic. What else? So yeah, I think they could both complement each other really nicely. I think Taurus could help Virgo to be maybe a little bit more sociable, depending on the people involved, depending on the other placements. And I don't know. Taurus does sometimes enjoy personalities that are a little bit more complicated or like counterculture than themselves, and they could find that with Virgo. I think Virgo is kind of a normie sign, but they're also kind of freaky at the same time, kind of weird. So I think that would be interesting for Taurus. Okay, and I haven't even thought about this yet. Virgo with themselves, Virgo with another Virgo. So I myself am a Virgo. I used to really not be attracted to Virgos, but I really am in recent years. I enjoy other Virgos. But this isn't about me. So Virgo with another Virgo. This gets interesting because any Virgo, anyone with major Virgo placements, they view themselves as being objectively correct because, they are so adaptable and they have this like thought process. They think everything through. Like any of their opinions and feelings are they tend to be very thought through. So they view those thoughts, feelings, decisions, opinions, etc. as objectively correct. But what's interesting is when you put two Virgos side by side who inevitably have had different experiences and therefore have different opinions, both view themselves as objectively correct, even though the difference between them, the two of them, shows that clearly they are both still subjective. Like, and I am a part of that. Like, I think I'm correct, but I also understand that, there is subjectivity in objectivity and vice versa. Like the two terms aren't mutually exclusive. So I could see Virgos really getting on each other's nerves because both will say, I'm right, this is the right way to do this. Okay, but you have your own way of doing it, and they could argue or debate or just kind of shut off. Virgo does tend to be, they want to be very helpful though. They like being of service to others. So I could also see two Virgos being, very helpful and servicing to each other. Obviously, when you have someone very similar to yourself, you're going to speak the same language. It's going to be a very easy connection. I think I'd put a Virgo with Virgo in the good category. I'm not in love with it. I don't think I'm in love with any sign paired with itself. Like, I think that can be kind of boring, but especially if one or both parties are in a phase of self-discovery, then that's where you'd really see a flourishing relationship with someone more similar to yourself. What else? I do notice a lot of couples that have, let's say like both having Sun in Virgo. Actually, two clients that I've had recently were both part of Virgo relationships. Part of that could be that Virgo is just the most common sign, but yeah, I do think there's something more to that. I do think it's a compatible mix, but again, the only difference is that both could be, I don't know, I could see them having like intense debates maybe. But yeah, that's how I view Virgo's compatibility. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Oh, and if you want to get a reading, definitely hit me up. I will link my website somewhere on the screen. But yeah, there's information on readings on my website, and you can purchase readings directly there as well. And I do couples readings in addition to just solo birth chart readings. But anyway, thanks so much for hanging out with me and listening to me ramble. But yeah, this was a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.